Pretty much the outline how it's gonna go. I brought the wrong book though. Damn. Pretty much the outline how it's gonna go. I brought the wrong book though. Damn. I hate when I do that shit.
NightOutHipHop.com.
Yeah. Holy smokes, I'm no joke out the bullpen. Bringing nothing but heat, leave you hanging like clothespins. He's a beast when he goes in, ice cold frozen. The first round draft pick, number one chosen. Drop bombs, explosion, I'm self-promotion. And I keep shit moving like a flanker in motion.
Hey, welcome to another episode of After the Buzzer Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Lee Jones, bringing you another exciting episode. I got man Real Leo along. What's up, Leo?
What's going on, man? I'm looking forward to this show, man. I think Lee got technical issues going on. Mayday, Mayday. Yo, Lee, you there? Technical issues is always something that you gotta look out for when you do these podcasts. But the real Leo's here and Lee is here as well. What's going on, Lee?
I'm back.
Welcome back, man. Welcome back to your own show.
I'm back. A little technical. Start again. I'm your host, Lee Jones. This is After the Buzzer Sports Podcast. Y'all, you know, it's always modern technology. So, Leo, what's been going on with you, man?
Yeah, I've been doing good, man. Just watching these games, March Madness and whatnot. The NBA getting ready for the playoffs there, getting ready for my New York Knickerbockers. All right, looking forward to that. And man, just looking forward to doing this show, man. Anytime, we got good topics, it definitely makes me more excited to come on. And you always got good topics. So I'm here and I'm ready to rock and roll.
Yeah. Again, excuse for the technical difficulties. My internet, I don't know what's going on with that, but we back and we ready to go. We got some exciting topics today. Leo, really want to discuss this sad and tragic event surrounding Tiger Woods. Leo, it's you're a golf guy, and we all love Tiger, but a lot's going on in Tiger's life. A lot's going on over the past few years with Tiger, man. And I just want to jump into that and get your opinion about that and what's going on with Tiger Woods. LSU. Rehired Will Wade, their former basketball coach who was disgraced, who was fired for providing benefits to players and their family and tampering and lying and obstruction with the NCAA. Well, he went away. He had a 2-year show cause. He went away. Now he's back at LSU. I want to get your thoughts about LSU. It seems like LSU don't care what goes on there. They pay people. And then finally, the Attorney General for the state of Florida is asking the NFL to abolish the Rooney Rule, Lil. And I wanted to really jump into that and see what your thoughts are about that, because, man, is the Rooney Rule working? Is it something they just should get rid of? Anyway, I want to get your thoughts on that. As always, guys, I'd like for you to like, subscribe to the show. We got a lot going on, man. So please chime in on our topics, because I think it's going to be a great show, Leo. Let's jump right into it. Our first topic for today is the sad fall from grace of Tiger Woods. As a lot of people know, this past week, Tiger Woods was in an accident in Jupiter, Florida. And what's up, Sammy Campbell? In Jupiter, Florida. And, had a rollover accident. Okay. That's the second one he's had. Tiger's had a series of accidents over the last few years. I'm going to recap some of those accidents. He of course, he had the accident while he fell down the ravine, was driving 85 miles an hour in a 55, went over a cliff, ran into a tree, almost lost his leg, Leo. He had another accident where he was on the side of the road sleeping on the side of the road sleeping, charged with a DUI. And he was incoherent, sleeping, and so he had a third incident where he was in his apartment complex where he ran into a fire hydrant. Had some minor cuts and bruises, and then he had this accident this past weekend. And what I can say is, what a fall from grace for someone that we admired and looked up to his entire career. What thoughts and what's going on with Tiger? And just a sad case of what we're seeing from an all and from grace.
Yeah, definitely. Lee, I think your connection is acting up a little bit, but we got a battle. Look, first of all, I got this daggone fly. Get out of here, fly. Get out of here. Bah. Okay. You see things trying to mess the flow up.
Go ahead, Lil. First topic.
It's not
the fall of Tiger Woods, Lil. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, definitely.
What are your thoughts about this fall from grace for Tiger Woods?
Yeah, definitely. Firstly, I have to respond to these negative Knicks comments in this chat. Look, you know what they say, you're not successful until you have haters. All right. And the Knicks clearly got a lot of haters. And you know what? That's what's going to propel us to do good things this year. But anyway, going back to Tiger Woods. Lee, there's two groups of people that I think should be banned from driving. Senior citizens that are 80 years old and up, and Tiger Woods. All right. Those are the two groups of people that should be banned immediately from driving. Right. Because clearly, and look, I don't got nothing against senior citizens. Obviously, my full-time job is in sales, and I close a lot of senior citizens. Okay, they actually put more money in my pocket. So look, I don't got nothing to say bad against her. I just don't think they should be driving, and I just don't think Tiger Woods should be driving either, because of all the examples that you alluded to, hitting the fire hydrant in 2009, 2017, fell asleep in the car. You know what happened in 2009? I don't know what happened in 2009, so I'm not going to tell you. I forgot. But I do know in 2017, the world changed from 2009, right? 2021 was after the pandemic. Kobe Bryant died. Michael Jackson died. So many things happened in the world, and yet the main constant in the changing world, is that Tiger Woods cannot not get into an accident. And that's the problem. Clearly, one of the greatest of all times in his sport, if you can call golf a sport, by all means, but dominant in it, to where he brought a lot of people that really didn't care about golf to the sport. I remember when he had that layoff in which he didn't win any majors in that little time span, and he won after all that incidents that happened. And I remember watching it and me tuning in, and literally people was following this dude like he was Moses, bruh. Okay, yeah, everybody, the whole cameras, everybody was following this dude like it was Moses. I've never seen nothing like it in the history of professional sports, ever. Okay, not Jordan, not Tom Brady, nothing. Okay, yep. But yet we come back here to this guy, and he continues to make mistakes. The guy needs help. And the problem is, when guys like Tiger Woods get all that money, it's like people around him allow him to go down the wayside. And it seems to be the same similar case with other people with money, because unfortunately, when you have somebody with a lot of money and power and fame, you can't really tell them nothing. You can't really say, yo, my mans, put down the alcohol. And if you want to drink, that's on you. You want to mess up your kidneys, that's on you. But don't go out there driving. You could hurt somebody. You could kill somebody out there in the road. And look, I'm a road warrior. I drive a lot. Again, I'm in sales. You have to be on the road in sales. And I really get offended when I see the bigotry that be going on in these roads, okay, and how dangerous it is. I drive a lot for a living, okay? That's part of the job, right? And to have guys like Tiger Woods that doesn't care about other people's safety, that doesn't care about his, himself, his image, to me is a problem.
Yeah. And Sammy Campbell says Tiger Woods an alcoholic. It's sad that he didn't, in this latest incident, he registered 0.0 on when he blew, I think he's not an alcoholic. I think he is addicted to painkillers. That's what I think he is. And whether it's alcohol or painkillers, it's irrelevant. He needs help, as you said, Lil. It's time for him to understand that he needs help. Before he kills somebody or kills himself. I mean, that's the thing that I'm worried about. You're driving 55, 60 miles an hour in a 30. Right, in a 30 mile per hour zone, and you're following closely, and it's a 2-lane highway. You try to pass. Obviously, you're driving too close. You hit the back of the trailer that the guy was pulling. Now, you have to be very close to him, Lil, to hit the trailer. It's all the impairedness of him, and it's almost like he's a functioning addict because he thinks that he can get behind the wheel of a car and drive. That's what most addicts do. And it's a sad, sad state of occurrences when you see his mug shot and how far Tiger Woods has fell from grace, man. I mean, that accident that he had when he fell down the ravine, remember, he was 7 or 8 months removed from winning the Masters when he did that. So he's a detriment, Leo, to his own career. To be honest with you, that's what's going on here. And so Tiger has to really think and sit down, and somebody close to him has to say, Tiger, you need help, and we're going to have an intervention until you get help, because before he kills himself or kills somebody else. Look, Leo, I'm a spiritual guy. God doesn't give you, he gives you warning signs. You fell down a ravine and hit a tree and almost lost your leg. Now you tilt over, you're on low riders tilting over to one side, Lil. You're on one leg. You're on one side of the car, you're crawling out that window. I mean, how many more warning signs do you have to get before you know, Tiger, that you need help? And you need help in the worst way, Lil. So what are your thoughts about that? And what type of scar do you think this is putting on Tiger Woods' image as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about his image, and look, I'm not the type to do any race baiting, right? Because I think race baiting is a big thing in this time. Everybody want to pull the race card. Everybody want to bait somebody into race content. And I like to just talk about the game. I like to talk about controversial topics and whatnot, but not from a race bait perspective. But what I would say about race and the way how Tiger Woods present himself, I feel like if he didn't act the way he acted, which, and some people would say, he acts like a white person, right? To me, I think his career would have been over if he did half the stuff that he did. And let's say he had tattoos, certain type of look. I think his career would have been over. He probably wouldn't even have been accepted into the field, which is golf, that he was in. So he had to play the part, look the part in order to be the part. And to me, that's why he was able to overcome this. He won a Masters after that major situation that happened before. He was accepted back because obviously his allies, listen, you are what your allies are. And to me, that plays a part in the image. But if he continues to have these infractions and these situations, eventually he's going to get cut loose. Eventually, whatever side of America he's on and whatnot is going to let him go and let him loose. And he's just going to be a person that we remember the highs, but we also remember the lows as much as the highs.
Yeah, I want to read something from Chris Sawyer, who's a friend of the show. Chris Sawyer, as an addict myself, he is definitely a functioning addict. We always think we are okay and nothing bad will happen. And that's what Tiger's doing, and nobody's around him. And thank you for that comment, Chris, and sharing and opening up, brother. Look forward to getting you back on the show. No one around him is pulling him to the side, because why is this man drinking? Why is this man driving under the influence? Why is this man driving while intoxicated? Why is he doing all of these things when he's worth $1.3 billion and he can have a driver at his beck and call, Leo, at any moment? It doesn't make any sense.
The thing is, money does not exempt you from, money doesn't, money get a lot of yes mans around you. You have to have real ones around you. Sometimes, and I don't know if this is Tiger Woods, but sometimes when people get to a level in the economic bracket, they push away real people from them, right? People that will put them in their spot. right? So we don't know how he is as far as those dynamics is concerned. But I do know, and we see it a lot. We've seen it with Michael Jackson. As great as Michael Jackson was, the king of pop, he had an addiction. When his head caught on fire during the Pepsi commercial, he was on painkillers and whatnot. That ended up, if you believe the actual theory of how he died, right? You don't think it's nothing conspiratorial about it. Then he, the narrative is he died because of painkillers and whatnot, because he was prescribed something. And you know how that goes. So we see it all the times with these celebrities. How many celebrities died because of drugs, alcohol, and whatnot? There's a reason for that. Because when they get to a certain economic bracket, you think because you all worth $1.3 billion that you can have a driver, you can have this and that. But like Jay-Z said, you could pay for school, but you can't buy class.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing, Lil, and I think you hit it, and Chris Sawyer says there's no race in addiction. And I totally agree with that, because addicts come in all shapes, sizes, colors, religions, and everything. Tiger being a childhood prodigy, Lil, and him growing up from the time he was in juniors, we saw him from the time he won his first major and so on. We've seen this guy, he's grown with us. And, sometimes it evolves that you don't listen to anyone. You're taking care of so many people. To your point with Michael Jackson, so many people are part of your entourage that there's no one there that's willing to risk the idea of telling you that you're an addict and that you need to get help and that you're going down the wrong path. And these things are manifested. You start to have these incidents where you're asleep behind the wheel at 3 a.m. in the morning on a public highway. Who does that? Right? Or where you are driving in your own neighborhood and you're so impaired you run into a fire hydrant. Come on, man. There's something really bad going on there. And somebody has to pull Tiger aside and put it on the line and say, man, you need to go to rehab. This is an addiction. This is something that's going to ultimately destroy your life, whether it be you hurt yourself or you hurt someone, God forbid you hurt someone else. This will not end well if Tiger keeps going down this road. Now, when we look at his persona and how people view him, hell, it's already a negative view, right? Tiger, he hasn't played. His back is always flaring up now. And we love the memories of Tiger Woods. We all have those nostalgic memories of him. But, that light has shined. All these other young golfers have come up. We love the fact that Tiger did what he did. We would hope that he would come back, but in the state that he's in, Lil, and if he's addicted as we think he is, he's not coming back, because in every instance, he's relying on that pain medication.
Yeah, I mean, this would be my last point. Again, addiction as well. Any type of addiction, gambling addiction, right? There's a lot of things going on with gambling now, drugs and whatnot, sex, there's different types of addictions. And Tiger Woods is just like anybody else. He just happens to be worth the money he's worth. But whether low class, upper class, it's time for Tiger Woods to have some class in general and get the help that he needs so he could become a better human being. I think the golden days of him being at the top of the sport is clearly over. The only thing that he has to go over is in regards to sports and his craft is the nostalgia. But as far as him, the man, he has years left to, shape his life in a positive direction, maybe find Christ and whatnot, if you believe in a higher power, or if not, fight the power. That's it. That's my take.
Yeah, last thing I'll say, Lil, Tiger is going on the senior tour, right? Where you don't have to walk the golf course. You can ride in a car. You can do all these things. And he could have a great final act. But he got to get this act together first. This is the act that's the most important. It's not going on the senior tour.
Because this could be the final act, literally, if he keeps it up. This could be the final act. So we want a final act.
It could be, absolutely.
Yeah.
If he keeps, it could be.
Absolutely.
It could be his final act. And so get yourself together, man, Tiger. I mean, it's a lot that is going surrounding his world. But Tiger, man, when I saw that car flipped over on its side the way it was, that Range Rover, Lil, and you could think about all the things that could possibly happen on a 2-lane highway, driving 55 miles, 65 miles an hour in a 30, and what could happen when you're impaired like that, man, his life could take a drastic turn, and nobody wants to see that for Tiger Woods. So Tiger, man, get the help that you need. Thanks for all the comments, guys. That was a great topic, and we hope that Tiger realizes that people look up to you still, and we want the best for you. Topic number 2, Lil, and this is one that I really it caught my eye, man. It caught my eye because I couldn't believe this happened. We talk about LSU. We talk about LSU sports. We talk about, they hired Lane Kiffin from Ole Miss and, got him right before the playoffs. Well, my second topic as we go on the second topic is Will Wade, the coach at North Carolina State, was hired by the LSU Tigers to be their head coach. Now, that in itself is nothing. He was there at North Carolina State for 1 year. Hey, you know the deal. People, they poach people from other programs, like you picking apples, right? But the interesting thing is Will Wade was the previous coach for LSU, in which he was fired from LSU for NCAA sanctions. One, he was on a wiretap, the FBI wiretap, making cash payments, strong-arming players and prospects to come to LSU. He lied to the NCAA. They got him for obstruction. And it's known that he was paying players to come to LSU. He got a 2-year show cause for it, right? He went on to McNeese State after the 2-year show cause. Hey, he took McNeese State to the NCAA tournament. He was recently hired at North Carolina State. North Carolina State, they went to the NCAA tournament. But it's such a bad look, Leo, and a black eye on LSU sports to hire a guy who 4 years ago, you fired for all of these NCAA infractions. Leo, I want to throw it to you. What do you think about LSU hiring Will Wade back as their head men's basketball coach?
From an image perspective, it's a bad look because right now LSU, in the span of one, I guess you could say, I won't say off season, but one little season, hired 2 of the biggest con men in professional sports. And they seem to double down on the con men. Obviously the star power across the program with Lane Kiffin, who they gave $91 million to, another coach with similar red flags in college football, multiple violations, just the amount of fraud. And it basically, it lets me know that they just value winning in some regards, which, by all means, everybody wants to win, but they don't have any morals in doing so. They do not care. And to me, that's a program that, I would stay away from. But obviously, in the NIL era, money talks. And this is the thing about NIL. And I find 101 ways, of summer vacation to come at the NIL. I was singing Phineas and Ferb theme song, by the way. Okay. All right. I find 101 ways of summer vacation to talk about how destructive the NIL could be in some regards. Again, pros and cons, right? Because now everything is about the money, and they know that Wade was abusing the system before, which he wasn't the only one. He was just one of the ones that got caught. He was on a wiretap and whatnot. But again, it doesn't matter now because what he did before that was illegal is now legal. And they believe that with the money and resources they have in the program, which I believe was about 10 million of NIL money to spare for the upcoming season, that in the NIL landscape, he would fit right in. Cool. It makes sense when you look at it from that perspective, but morally as a program, to me, is a bad look. It's a bad look from the image. It's a bad look all across because it shows you that, again, morals aside, that you don't care about it. So to me, I don't like it. But hey, that's what LSU decided to do, which is hire two comments in the same cycle.
Yeah, NC State gave Will Wade $2.5 million annually. They gave him a $14 million budget for basketball. But the problem was, Lil, he never wanted to be there in the first place, right? He was
Nope.
just going for the money. He was going for the money, and he was advancing. He left McNeese. McNeese wasn't paying him as much as NC State was, but his heart was always still at LSU. And he knows that environment in LSU, right? He knows the people, and the athletic director that was at LSU that brought him, that was at McNeese State, that brought him to McNeese State, now works where? LSU. So it's all a full circle. And so he probably was contacting Wade and was like, look, man, I got the job. We want to bring you back. I can talk to the guys. They're excited. And hell, they don't give a damn. They just don't. And LSU is proving what we always say on this show, Lil. It's about the money, the bottom line. It's not about student athletes. Forget all of this stuff about athletes, and education. It ain't about that. They're about building this sports dynasty where they are going to maximize the revenue that's coming into that university. And with Lane Kiffin, it shows they're paying coaches. They're paying two coaches, former coaches, still at LSU. Now they're going to pay a basketball coach the remaining $8.8 million and bring Will Wade in there. Hell, LSU must be printing money, right? But they know one thing. If you have great sports teams, the revenue is going to come. The revenue from the NCAA tournament, the revenue from some of the local television and radio, and especially the revenue from the SEC, both in football and basketball. So they don't care. They just don't care. And you know, the thing you gotta, I ain't gonna say respect them, but hell, you gotta tip your hat. They literally said, we don't give a damn. We're gonna bring the guy that was the crook back
And
at our
they did
head
it,
coach.
and they didn't even make it public about who they was hiring. They did some secret, you know, behind the wall type of thing here. You know, it's almost like how secretive it was that the U.S. government went and took bin Laden and killed bin Laden. You know, we never saw a body show up, right? It's like that, you know. But I would say this: when you look at Will Wade's his record, I believe in LSU, he complied a 105 and 51 overall record during his 5 seasons there before. Obviously, led them to a couple tournament appearances and whatnot. And the reason why I bring that up is because take a guy in college basketball like Rick Pitino, a guy that was selling prostitutes. I believe that was in the. They was paying prostitutes to recruit people. I mean, literally. I mean, that's the worst look that a coach could have, to do something like that. But yet, what we know about Rick Pitino, no matter what, this guy's a good basketball coach. No matter what the program is, he's a good basketball coach. And clearly, everywhere he goes, he turned water into wine. So I believe it's similar in how they feel about Will Wade. They believe that he's going to be able to get them wins, and that's what they're looking for. They know they have the machine. They know they have the broadcasting rights and TV advertisement. They know they have the NIL money. All they need is the face. And right now, they got that face. But again, it's a disgrace, because to me, it's a bad look.
Yeah, Sammy Campbell has college sports has no ethical standards anymore. Look at Bobby Petrino at Arkansas, rehired Wade at LSU, rehired. There's no law in the United States anymore. Yeah, no, that's very true. That's very true. And that's why, Sam, and I totally agree. That's why when people start to talk about education and get back to the old ways, and this is, you know, we're about the education and making these people young men, man, that's crazy. Look at what LSU just did. What does that say to any recruit that comes to LSU? Any recruit, any family that they're walking into the recruit's house, what does that say? Can you look at a recruit and their family in their face, Will Wade, and talk about education? No. What you're going to talk about, Lil, how much money are we going to make? What's going to be the deal, and what you're going to sign my kid for? And that's a financial transaction, which It's illegal now, and so that's what's going to happen. Will Wade has a very successful record at LSU because he was paying players to come there. That's why he has this. Now, we'll see what happens now when the field is even with everybody, but it's a travesty. And to your point, it's no different than what every other person is doing. Patino's done it for years. I'm sure that Calipari has done it for years at Arkansas and Kentucky and UMass and every place he's been. This is what, these big time coaches do. Let's not sugarcoat it. Rick Pitino should have been out of basketball for what he did at Louisville. He got another opportunity. He's at St. John's and going to tournaments. So, it's just crazy how people and talk about going back to education and stuff. No, this is big business, and these kids need to understand that and be educated about it. Lil, I'll give you the final word.
Yeah, again, ethics in college sports is gone now. And with the era of NIL, you're just going to have this influx of everything that's being done is money related. Whether it was Lane Kiffin leaving Ole Miss and honestly doing them disgracefully. That was a KD like move. You remember KD going to the Warriors after losing to the Warriors, right? It was almost like that. You're ditching a program just for another program for no reason in the same conference. So you're going to have pointless moves like that. Probably is going to be the precedent going forward. And you're going to have coaches that in the past, like Will Wade, did things they weren't supposed to do, got fired or, disciplined for it, get another opportunity because now it's all about the money. And obviously from the player perspective, again, it's all about the money. Somebody get yelled at, that guy's probably going to be in the transfer portal tomorrow. So that's just the reality that we live in. And just like everything else in America, is either you adjust or you get back.
Yeah, remember a few weeks ago, and this is the last thing I'll say about that topic before we move on. Remember a few weeks ago we were talking about the Kansas State coach Lil, that they don't even want to pay him the rest of his contract because he said the players disgraced the uniform and that they were going to be there at 6 o'clock in the morning and working hard and he's going to get them better. I bet he doesn't get a second chance, Lil. I bet he's never a head coach again, where Will Wade can buy players, be on a FBI wiretap, can lie to the NCAA investigation people and obstruct justice. And lo and behold, this man has got job after job after job. As Don King would say, and I'm going to leave it like this, Leo, only in America.
Yep.
Only in America.
Agreed.
Only in America. Hey, we're going to quickly pivot to our final topic. We're doing an abbreviated show today, so my man Leo and I can catch this Knicks game, a very important game against the Thunder that's coming on. And Leo, UConn just shocked Duke.
Wow.
Just shocked Duke to knock them out of the NCAA championship, and we'll go into that a bit more next week. But Lil, our final topic is that I'm gonna get Sammy Campbell's last comment in. I bet a black coach at Michigan football, he'll never get a second chance. Absolutely not. He may be a coordinator for somebody, and that's an iffy situation.
To be honest
but
with
he'll
you, I
never
don't
be a
even
head
think
coach.
he deserved a second chance because what he did was just so stupid. I mean, yeah, I get it. Like playing players is something that, especially in that time, in that era before NIL, was obviously stupid. I'm not really trying to really compare ethics and whatnot or infractions, but maybe I am doing that. But what Shawan Moore did was just stupid. But hey, Ime Udoka got another opportunity.
He got another opportunity, so you never know.
Hey.
Sharon Moore it's gonna be difficult for him to get another head coaching job. He wasn't viewed in the first place as a great coach anyway, because he was hand selected because he was.
But to be fair, Ime was doing, he didn't take it to the extent of Shawan Moore. Shawan Moore was acting like he needed psychiatric help after what he did. So, Yeah.
Our last topic, Liv, before we get out of here. The Attorney General in Florida he is going at the NFL and wanting them to abolish the Rooney Rule. Everybody, if you don't know what the Rooney Rule is, it's that in any coaching cycle, each team has to interview, I think, 3 minority candidates in the cycle before they hire a head coach, to put it, and to paraphrase that. And the Attorney General is saying they need to abolish that. And may try to sue the NFL, and I don't know how much traction he'll get because it is a privately held company. But he wants them to abolish the Rooney Rule. Leo, I want to ask you about what the Attorney General is doing per se, but also in the same breath, should the NFL get rid of the Rooney Rule? Is it working? Floor is yours, my brother.
Yeah, firstly, Florida is the best state in America. Firstly, to me, I like Governor Ron DeSantis. I'm a big fan of him. I think he has done an amazing job with the state, banning the manufacturing of lab-grown meat that he signed in 2024, being vocal about a major potential proposal, HJR 203, to eliminate non-school property taxes. They're aiming for a 2027 implementation. My dad lives out in Florida. I have family out there in Florida. I can actually see myself living in Florida in the future. So big up to Florida, right? Besides the hurricane season. But according to the Attorney General, and this is out of his own mouth, Florida law is clear. Hiring decisions cannot be based on race, and the Rooney Rule mandates race-based interviews. Now, look, I agree with the Attorney General's idea to roll back DEI programs because I do believe that DEI eliminates merit from the hiring process. Now, I wouldn't even want to work for a company that hired me just because they had to fulfill a quota. To me, I wouldn't even accept it. So to be honest with you, I don't know why anybody else would. Because me, I'm always a person that I'm of moral. Hire me because my resume say I should be hired, right? Unfortunately, that doesn't always happen. There's politics involved, right? But it's a different type of politics that I'm going to explain in a minute. But for me, I would never want to be hired somewhere just because somebody had to fulfill a quota, or to be, in this case with the Rooney Rule, it's not even guaranteed to be a hire. It doesn't really incentivize hires, it incentivizes interviews. So that's another thing. I don't know if they pay these coaches or fly them out to do these interviews, but I've been on interviews in the past and I missed out on jobs where I had to pay tolls, I had to travel out of state, gas money. Obviously, gas is going up now. So the last thing I want is to go to a job that I know I'm not going to get, but because these clowns is forced to interview me just for the sake of it, what am I wasting time for? And again, that was a prime example of that happening when Robert Kraft hired Mike Vrabel, who we all know he was going to hire Mike Vrabel. The only reason why he fired Gerard Mayo to begin with, because he clearly knew that it was going to be more than a 1-year job to fix that Patriots team. He admitted it. He said it. But the only reason why he fired the dude, right, it wasn't because he was racist. He fired him because he saw an opportunity to get Mike Vrabel. But hold up, it's not so simple, Mr. Robert Kraft. The Rooney Rule is going to force you to waste. I forgot who was the coaches that he interviewed. I think Brian Leverage was one of them, and somebody else, to waste their time because of a quota when we all knew he was. The fact that those black people even went to that interview, I don't know who I was mad at more. Robert Kraft for doing his job and what he was forced to do, or the two black minority coaches that went for the interview knowing that they wasn't gonna get the job. I probably was mad at them more. So again, when you talk about DEI, is no merit. Look at what's going on in the aviation field. I have a lot to say about this topic. I'm gonna minimize it and let you get in here. But look what's going on in the aviation field with all these planes crashing and stuff happening. You think I give a damn about DEI when I'm in the sky and I could DIE? Okay, no, I don't give a damn about DEI. I want to know that the person flying my plane is the best equipped person with years of experience to fly my daggone plane, not because he's or she's a woman and they had to fulfill a quota, or because he's minority. I don't give a damn about that. Okay, listen, I treat everybody with respect, black, yellow, whatever, and no matter what color you are, if you experience, you deserve the job. So for me, and I'll narrow it down here, and I'll let you get in here. The Rooney Rule should be abolished because it's a waste of time. And Lee, I will hit you with this. It's not about racism in the NFL. Does racism exist? Does every owner, maybe one or two owners are racist, probably, right? Just like any other job. We don't know who they are, but they're probably there, just like how they're prejudiced people all over. However, that's not the problem here. The problem is, and I said this on my show, is that people feel comfortable with people they can relate to. And that's the problem. We need to encourage people, especially white people, because look, I'd be lying if I didn't say that this was a white America, because it is, right? I'm in sales. So all my managers, and look, I'm not gonna lie, I've been a job hopper for a little bit. And there's one common thing with the job. You're gonna have a white boss, okay, a white manager. So how is that? And some of them is not equipped to be a manager. I could tell y'all stories. I've been on ride-alongs with managers that got kicked out the house. They didn't know what the hell they was doing. I'm like, how the hell you get this job? But I see it. I know what it is. It's because the boss is white. They can relate to each other. Yeah, and they have that. They feel comfortable with who they can relate to, and they don't understand us in our culture. But that's not an excuse. That should be a conversation of education. Surround yourself with other people. And that goes for black people too. Surround yourself, get out the neighborhood, travel, and meet other people, because other people are great people just like you. That's my take.
Yeah, Sammy Campbell said, I'm surprised that Kraft had time to interview anyone. I'm sure he was at the Rising Sun massage parlor with the Mae Young tie.
Look,
that's good one, Sammy. I like it.
I like it. I'm just keeping it in the bean. People can say what they want. They can fall into the race bait. But at the end of the day, it's about people, being comfortable around other people. Again, it's not only about a race thing, right? We got to stop using race as a way, because race doesn't do nothing but ignite battles and division. That's what it does. What we need to do is educate. What happened is, in the NFL, these owners and coaches, they surround themselves with people that look like them. So they bond because they have the same culture. They like the same music. They watch the same shows, so that, they friends, they buddy. But when you're like Bruce Arians and you surround yourself with other people, he had a black roommate, I believe, in college, Bruce Arians. Guess what? Bruce Arians' staff, when he was on Tampa, was the most diverse staff in the whole entire NFL. He hired, literally handpicked Todd Bowles to be his successor, and he retired.
Yep.
So that's my point.
Had a black offensive coordinator, black defensive coordinator as well. I think even the at one point the quarterback coach was black. There's a couple of things I want to say. Two things I want to say, really. So when we talk DEI, we're gonna get in. I'll just quickly on DEI. DEI doesn't say you have to hire anybody. DEI just says that person you have to hire. You have to interview people, and the key is not interview people, interview qualified people, right? It's qualified people. So no one is getting the job as an airline pilot that's not qualified to be an airline pilot, right? So you're not getting, so they're not hiring people that's a mechanic that's going to be a pilot. So so when we talk about DEI, you have to be qualified. And what DEI does, and as we go back to the football, is because these owners, and you said it perfectly,
what determines qualified?
These owners surround themselves with people.
What determines qualified?
Well, there's certain criteria.
Yeah, there's certain criteria, but then there's also, okay, my resume is better than yours. Because now if we talk about DEI and now that's imposed, there's one thing to, all right, fine, you get a bachelor's degree for this job. It requires a bachelor's degree and whatnot. Cool. But again, now we talk about experience. That's where the line is. So it's not about who just qualified. It's about experience. Do I have more experience than this person? Have I been in the industry longer than this person? To me, that's the merit.
But see, there are black people, when we talk about DEI, whose resume and qualifications are better than,
and they should be hired. And they should be hired because of that specifically. So that's why they should be hired.
That's why DEI was instituted in these organizations, because statistically you see it, and you look at the qualifications of people and they haven't been hired. People of other races haven't been hired, and others have been hired in place of those people. The Rooney Rule and DEI is about access, right? It's about access. And so we're talking access. And the problem with the NFL is, and what they wanted to do was get these coaches access to these owners and say, okay, you need to hire, interview 3 people just to get to know them, so they can, what you said, be around the owner and be in their space and see the intelligence. Look, when you're not hiring people in the NFL as coordinators, if you're not hiring black coaches as coordinators, how in the hell, or quarterback coaches, there's very few black quarterback coaches in the NFL. So they don't get credit for all these quarterbacks who are doing all these great things. Think Byron Leftwich. He won the Super Bowl with Tom Brady. Didn't get an ounce of credit for doing that. And he got a few interviews.
He got a job offer. Nobody Jacksonville Jaguars, ironically, who was in Florida. We talk about the attorney general in Florida, offered him a job. He turned it down, never been seen again.
Well, we need to find out what that offer was, and I don't know.
It was a legitimate offer. They offered him a job. They offered him a contract to sign to be the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He turned it down, never to be seen again.
Well, it's about access, Leo. It's about access. And so when you talk about these owners who know these people are not in their inner circle, know these people, and you think about an owner, right? An owner is not, 9 times out of 10, there's a few owners that played college sports, but most of them didn't. And so their world is full of people that don't look like the people that are coaching their team, that are position coaches, that are quarterback coaches. So they have to get to know these people. So that's what the Rooney Rule was put in place for, so that you could have that access to these people. But what's happening now, and it worked for a minute, 3 years ago was the most black coaches hired in the hiring cycle, but it's digressed now because these people are putting the Rooney Rule. They're making a mockery out of it now.
I gotta disagree. I agree with exactly what you just said before you went to that a couple years ago, because even though that's true statistically, because I believe what you're talking about 2 seasons ago, where they had the most coaches in that cycle. But if you look at it, if you peel the onion, those were people that already had access. It wasn't the Rooney Rule. Antonio Pierce played for the Raiders, so they hired him. Gerard Mayo played for the Patriots, so they hired him. So again, that was the access, they was on the football team. It was not the Rooney Rule, because if that was the case, then the statistics would have went up and not down.
Well, it is the Rooney Rule, Lil, because of this. They were in, Mayo was the defensive coordinator, and it gave him access to interview at a higher level. And even though Kraft knew Mayo was never, but he didn't know.
Gerard Mayo was never, nobody was ever interested in Gerard Mayo. It was Robert Kraft who handpicked Gerard Mayo.
He was in the organization, though, Lil.
Yeah, he was in the organization, and he was handpicked by Robert Kraft to be the next in line after Bill Belichick. That was actually agreed to before they even got rid of Bill Belichick. I believe like a year before Bill Belichick even got fired. But so that was access. His access came as a player.
It's one and the same, though. It's one and the same. He had access. He moved up the ranks. Now, it helps him because he's a former Patriot, and Kraft knew him, and Kraft he was in Kraft's circle. What the Rooney Rule is saying is that the defensive coordinator for the Denver Broncos, who is not in the circle of the owner of the New York Giants, he can get an interview so that he can get to know him and know his skill set and know his strategy. Mayo is it's an aberration because he played for the Patriots. Kraft already knew him. I agree with you on that point, but the Rooney Rule is not for the Gerard Mayos of the world.
The thing is with the Rooney Rule,
the other African American coaches of color who haven't had that access.
And look, we could agree, because I think we actually, even though we debate and we agree on the term of access, that's what we agree on. Now, the way how the access, lies and how that could be, explained more is probably where we disagree. Take a guy like Raheem Morris. He had 2 opportunities as a head coach in the National Football League. One with Tampa, in which he flopped. He went back to be a DC, but again, he built player relations. He had access. He got another opportunity. He got 2. Some people don't get 1. So again, it's access here. Now, the problem is when you talk about the Rooney Rule in interviews, interviews are not access, because when you talk about interviews are used to judge somebody, not only based off their resume. Unfortunately, it should be mainly based on their resume, but there's a lot of politics when it comes to interviews. How you look, how could you present, or you're a good presenter. People have these things that they have in their mind about you that may not even be true. Can he command the locker room? Is he talkative? Is he not? Like, there's so much things in the interview that's literally beyond just resume. And this goes for any job outside the NFL. You look a certain way, you talk a certain way, you're not eloquent enough, you don't talk this way, right? You talk, like you a thug or something like that, you may not get a job. So again, that doesn't give you access because somebody invited you for an interview. Access is being in somebody's locker room, playing for organization, or just being around them, going for a drink with them, like, same Ferrari, frat, like that's access. And the problem is that a lot of the minorities don't have access, and that's the unfortunate reality. But an interview is not going to create access. The only thing it's going to do is waste your time, because again, if somebody that can relate to them comes in for an interview, it'd be a whole different conversation. I've seen it before. I've seen it in corporate jobs where you do an interview, and the interview was fine, you do your thing, and then a white person goes in there, and it's almost like immediately the boss takes him under their wing.
Well, that happens, Leo. That certainly happens. But let me give you two examples. Christian Parker, the defensive coordinator for the Cowboys, is on the fast track to be a head coach. It's because of the access that he was given in the Eagles organization with Vic Fangio. Now that relationship has got him from a secondary passing game coach to a defensive coordinator for the Cowboys, and a fast track if he turns that defense around to be the head coach. But the number one person that is the poster child for the Rooney Rule is Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin was an afterthought to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They brought Mike Tomlin in to interview for the Rooney Rule, and he blew them off of their feet with the way he presented, the way his strategy, the way he talked about how he would rebuild the team, rebuild the defense, the culture, and all of that. That was the access question that I'm talking about. And Lil, it's not.
Well,
they didn't know.
Example.
They knew Mike
and
Tomlin.
That's a Hall of Fame coach. A Hall of Fame coach that clearly knows how to speak, that clearly could get the players to want to play for him. That's one example. That's not many examples.
Well,
there's never going to be another Mike Tomlin. That's going to get so many chances.
There's plenty of examples of coaches of color that should be put to that situation, that are articulate, that can speak, that can strategize, that can develop game plans, that are not. That's why we talk about access. The access is of being in the room for hours.
The access is not
with the decision-making people of these organizations, so they can see how Dallas interviewed. And last thing, and I'll turn it back over to you. Dallas interviewed, I think, 18 people for their defensive coordinator job. And Christian Parker was sort of the last one. I think they interviewed him next to last. He blew them away. He had the team broken down, how he would rebuild the team, and they hired him. Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones didn't have a relationship with Christian Parker, but the fact that he got to spend that time with them, that was the access that he needed, and they hired him, Leo. That's what the Rooney Rule is meant to do. Unfortunately, the culture in the country and how now it has shifted, that rule is not being taken literally how it should be. And I'll give you the last word on it.
Yeah, you gave me two examples. How long the Rooney Rule been in place? Like, what, two decades now? 2 examples out of 2 decades worth of existence. To me, that's not a good ratio. And the fact that Mike Tomlin is one of the great coaches, right? And I know I have my criticisms of his losing seasons, but he's a Hall of Famer for sure. Nobody's ever going to deny that. But there's never going to be another one of him. There's never going to be a coach that's going to get the amount of leash, because that's not the culture. Forget black and white. The culture is not that anymore when it comes to patience, when it comes to coaches. Coaches are getting fired left and right. He is the outlier. That's whatever. That was the last guy that's going to get so many opportunities because of the culture of coaching. But when you come back to, the Rooney Rule, again, interviews are going to be interviews. Yeah, that may get you in a room, and yeah, they may be one African American that could use that opportunity to blow somebody away. That doesn't mean the ratio is better. If it was, we would even be talking about it. If the Rooney Rule did its job, we would be having this discussion right now.
How did 8 coaches get hired 2 years ago then? If the Rooney Rule is not, it's not like
well, two of them we know were former players.
Most of them are former players.
Most of them were former players. Yeah, most of them were former players. Yeah, so that's number one. Okay, that's another. That's clear. That's a big thing. That's access right there. So again, when you talk about the Rooney Rule in general, to me, it's just wasting time. This Sammy right here talking about Eric Bieniemy. Eric Bieniemy had his stint with Washington, in which he wasn't even like a coordinator. He was like the second. They called him an assistant coach behind Ron Rivera. He did horrible over there.
He was assistant head coach.
The players didn't like him.
And
he got in. The players went to Ron Rivera talking about, listen, yo, I got to do something about this guy. So again, I'm not saying that he's a terrible coach, but what I'm saying is his style in particular, to me, doesn't fit in today's era. You can argue. Not that, clearly it's not working. It didn't work in college. It didn't work in the NFL locker room. We do realize that we live in a different era. You can't be that rugged and talk to players any type of way, especially in college with the NIL. They're into the transfer portal immediately. So to me, Eric Bieniemy is not a good thing. It's not a good case because he did have the access. He had Mahomes. He had Reed. Nobody vouched for this guy. In fact, Shady McCoy came out, his own player, and called him out. So again, if we're going to use examples, we need to make sure we pick the right examples and the guys that actually do deserve it. Eric Bieniemy, to me, is not one of them.
Eric Bieniemy is the offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs now, right? And now let me say this about his time at the Commanders. That's why they're a losing program, because people don't want to be coached. They're a losing program. The Commanders are a losing program. Look, Eric, the one thing about Andy Reid,
championship right away after they got rid of
his team needed the discipline that Bieniemy brings. They need the discipline that Bieniemy brings, and he hired him back as the offensive coordinator. So that tells you enough of how Andy Reid sees Eric Bieniemy. Maybe not some of the other people, because the other owners and the other coaches may not like his hard style. But and I agree with you about college, but certainly Andy Reid knows there's value there, and the owners at Kansas City knows there's value. So again, I hear you what you're saying on the Rooney Rule, and I think it is going backwards instead of forward, Leo. But in its what it's meant to be, it's a good thing for professional football. It's just that these owners now are starting to turn a blind eye, and they're just rubber stamping it to your point that I do agree.
They are a different race than we are. And again, if you want to make change, the only change that's going to come, and I hate to get radical here, is the change that you create yourself. If you want to see a league with a minority coaches and owners, well, guess what? Create your own. If not, if you're going to play in somebody else's game, then unless you're able to infiltrate the game, then you got to play by the game rules. And that's just what it is. The NFL is not the NBA. The NBA has more diversity and they have more access. And that's why they're able to hire who they want to hire and hire, a diverse group of people. The NFL, you have this cabal of owners that are white, and that's just what it is. So they are the gatekeeping, right? They are the gate and the access. So if they don't want to go out there and get to know other people and try to experiment and modernize their way of thinking, guess what? They don't have to. They should, but they don't have to, because you're talking to billionaires now. So in order to change the system, again, you may have to create your own one. And that's a conversation that we're too lazy for, because it takes us to go and support that new league. We don't want to do it because we love the NFL. So we love the NFL. We really shouldn't be talking.
Yeah, that's much harder.
When we get uncomfortable.
Well, that's much harder.
As a consumer, we have more power than the players because they work for us.
That starting a new league stuff
I'm just saying.
The rivalry in the NFL, that'll never happen. But
It
I
would
will
never
say
happen
this.
because we won't make it happen.
I will say this. I will say this to your point. We need to push for African American ownership in the NFL, and that's one of the things that. And I'm talking about majority ownership, not minority. There are minority owners in the NFL, but there needs to be majority ownership in the NFL to change some of this stuff. But this has been a great debate. I love my man Real Lil because he brings it hard. I love his energy. And guys, you see what he's about. That's why I have him on, because we can go knock down, drag out on these topics. We only wanted to do 30 minutes today. We ended up doing an hour. But Lil, This has been a great show. I love the topics. The topics were great. Tell the audience where they can hear us and hear your show, your number of shows that you have on multiple social media platforms. Let the audience know where they can hear you each week.
The Real Lil Show on Spotify and YouTube. We be pushing it out. We be keeping it real. We be keeping it controversial. Go New York Knickerbockers. Okay, my Knicks are playing. I'm about to get to that. Lee, thank you for having me on. On to the next one.
All right, guys. And hey, it's been another great show. That's my man, Real Lil. Catch him. We'll be back on next week, 6:30 p.m. Thanks to all of you for watching, tuning in. Thank you, Sammy Campbell, for your comments, man. We out.
Peace.